I'm thinking, who is guarding the fort? But it turns out 1.5% of us guard the fort, so you don't have to. You don't have to think about putting, and this is not a judgment. You don't have to think about putting your lives in jeopardy. It's a burden to be on the front line. No guarantee you're coming home. You're going to go home every day unless some person decides to run a red light, green light, or text behind you, or has macular and doesn't see you. But out there, your life is constantly on the line. And just 1.5%. Is that a fair distribution of benefits and burdens? You know, how many, and this applies to men, women got over this in my generation. They wanted to be equal, and then they figured, no, that's not really what we're talking about. How many of you guys would go and share the burden so we could all be free? And I'm not judging you. I don't mean it that way at all, people. But that's one of the deep fundamental questions in any society. Who gets the benefits and who gets the burdens? They're not equally distributed. And we have that conversation. Again, turn on the news, open the newspaper. It was part of the last election cycle in one of the parties. When I went to school, and I was your age, I paid $200 a semester. That was my tuition. Wow. Now there's still room and board, and $200. Now, student debt's over $1 trillion. And all those jobs out there, you really have to hustle to make good on your time here. And that's a philosophical question then. Maybe one of the deeper ones that you're going to have to face in current times, you know. We have all the other stuff going on in the media, but this is directly affecting your lives. Well, I could go on. I have a bunch of things here. I could play with your heads all day. I'd like to, but I'm not allowed to. They only let me out of my box every once in a while. Today's one of those days they've kind of let me out of my box to play with you. So the whole intent then, people, I mean, we're going to talk about things across the board, Eastern, Western. We're going to talk about metaphysics, epistemology, axiology, how we know things, how we don't know things. On Wednesday, we're going to get together and talk about something called British empiricism. The whole point of this is to give you a leg up on life, how to think it through. Your deepest fear is not that you're inadequate. Your deepest fear is that you're powerful beyond measure. Knowledge is the one thing that can set you free. When you have that knowledge, when you have that knowledge, and you don't have to go look in a book anymore for it, when you have that knowledge, and it becomes a tool in your hand, you can work it. Let me even pause it. What are fundamental questions to you? What are fundamental? You have to cooperate with me today. What are fundamental questions? For you, just for you, not the big, esoteric ones out there in the universe. What are fundamental questions? Is this the only life you get? And which takes us back to the ethical issue of end of life. Most of us are trying to hold on and hold on and hold on, and maybe what's next, if there is something next, maybe what's next is a whole lot better than here, and what are we hanging on to this for? Well, right now it's the only thing we know. Now, I have a friend, she was run down by a truck. She was a model until she was run down by a truck, just really took her face out. Maybe I shared this the first week in class, I don't know. They rushed Dolly to the hospital, and she spent the entire operation up there in the corner watching the doctors put her face back together again. It was all done. She talked to the doctors about it, And they said, what do you mean? She said, well, I was sitting right up there in the corner. Do you want me to repeat your dirty jokes? Well, if that's real, then evidently what we think is real is not all that could be real. Now, I tried to tease that to you the first week with string theory, that maybe there are 10 dimensions. And We couldn't see Dolly, but she sure saw us and reported it. And that happens more often than we want to admit. I showed you a friend of mine, he was 45 minutes dead after an operation. They had him ready to go. I call it the cooler. That's really not the right, what do you call that? The mortuary, you know, in the morgue. 45 minutes. Suddenly he opened his eyes, freaked out the technicians who were near him. They called the doctor. You know the first thing the doctor, can I put my hand on your, first thing the doctor did is came up to him and put his hand on him. He goes, wow, he's still warm. You see, when you're dead, you're not warm. All life goes out. That warmth just leaves you. Touched him and says, wow, you're still warm. Well, of course I'm warm. He's just having a conversation. Where'd you go? Well, he went somewhere that you and I evidently can't go, at least not on command. And I've been around this stuff long enough to experience other people who've had the same kind of experience. So when I ask you what are the deep fundamental questions, and one of them is what's the meaning to life? Well, what does life mean? And the very first day I showed you, in fact, I had a video that I had keyed up here, and I'm probably not going to play it for you, but one of them is a fellow named John Searle, and he says, you know, people want to know what causes cancer. The philosopher wants to know what is the cause. So when we ask, what's the meaning of life? I want to know, well, what is life? Is this all there is? I'm okay with it. I'm here. I enjoy it. You know, go home and have my low-fat frozen yogurt espresso chip. More than one time. But I'm going to spread it out so I feel better about not overeating my low-fat frozen yogurt. And I'm going to have to throw a salad in there because I know it's healthier for me. But I'd rather just pig out on, oh, well, what is life? And does it matter? Well, you know, in a sense it does matter, because where Dolly was, what if we get a chance to go there? Remember the movie Interstellar? It's a weird movie, but it's based on science. What if we get a chance to go there and we don't have to wait for it to happen to us? What if we can unlock a door or a key and we can... See, and philosophers of science now, philosophers of astronomy, are beginning to wonder these questions, because there's some things out there that just don't make sense the way we've always thought of them. You know, they're measuring the planets in the outer solar system, and there's wobbles in their orbits, and there's nothing out there to make them do that. I mean, these are people that are pretty sure they know what they're talking about, and there are strange wobbles out there, and it can only happen when one object affects another on a gravitational, and they're now beginning to wonder, I wonder what's really out there. And there's two theories. There's either a second sun, huge one that goes way out, and maybe 10,000 years comes back in again. That'll be a heck of a party. Or there's a really another big planet like Jupiter that does the same thing, and when that comes in, it'll turn our whole solar system upside down. Maybe there's more than what we know. And if it is real, it will have an effect on us. Maybe it's time to think about it before it just happens to us. You know, less than a month ago, an asteroid went between the Earth and the Moon that nobody saw come until it was 2 days before it was here. Wasn't big enough to destroy the Earth, but if it would have hit the Earth, it would have taken out a great part of life on the planet. Just zoomed right by us. No one saw it coming. We have about 90% of them tagged. Between the Earth and the Moon, just went zipping right by us at about 27,000 miles an hour. You know what that would produce if it hit the Earth? The power released. Just zipped right by us, unknown to us at all. So what are the fundamental questions, people? Let me provoke you this way. Any of you even think of being philosophers at some point in your life? It's okay. I'm not going to sign you up or anything. It's not like I got a contract in my pocket. Right? You're a philosopher for life. Well, the point of this then, I'll do more work for you. The point of this then is when we start to think, we start to open our minds and think outside the box, there's a set of tools that we use. We talked a little bit about it last week. We talked about deductive and inductive logic. Those are tools. They're mechanisms to try and help us to get to some understanding of the world we live in. What you'll see on your quiz this week, philosophy not only searches for knowledge through questions and fundamental and abstract truths, metaphysics, ontology, epistemology, axiology, If philosophy is the rational attempt to formulate, understand, and answer fundamental questions, then we have to ask ourselves not only what is rational, but what is fundamental. What are absolute truths? Is there any variance in it? In fact, is there anything out there that's really absolutely true? Everything science discovered so far has had to be modified. We stake our life on it. There's nothing wrong with it. Newton still said the apple goes up and comes down. Newtonian physics works. It's just not, it was incomplete at the time. More knowledge had to be added to it. Einstein was right. Einstein was inadequate. We had to add more to it, and we're still adding more to it all the time. Stability of our lives, we think, depends on absolute truth. And yet the reality is the world we live in is yet to discover an absolute truth. Now, some of us have faith that there are absolute truths. Religions all believe in absolute truths. And they may be true whether we can prove them or not with the mechanisms or tools that we have. I don't want to be denigrating. But with the tools that we have in the modern world, we have nothing that we can say is absolutely true. And yet we count on it, on an inevitability. Some people live their lives banking on something that comes next. When my dad was dying, he asked me, he must have been 2.5 years from dying, we had some really good conversations. He said, do you think there's anything that comes next? He said, I don't know. I have faith. And by the way, faith isn't always built to the afterlife. When you get in your car and you put your key in and turn it, you have faith that it's going to turn on. Faith is an operating principle. It's what you attach your faith to that makes a difference in how you look at the world. I said, I don't know. I have faith, but I can't tell you. I have no idea. And when you go, I can't ask you, and you can't come back and tell me as far as I know. And yet we stake our whole life on it. I mean, how many of you believe, look, this is not judgmental. None of this is, people. How many of you believe in an afterlife? I mean, it's fundamental to how we live. It's important to us. It justifies what happens here. And it's important to us. Later on this semester, we'll get to Friedrich Nietzsche, who thought it was just, irresponsible way to think. Well, that was Nietzsche's idea. Many of us literally stake our lives on it, the life we live here. I remember when I went through the cancer treatment, did I ever tell you this? They wanted to break my face open. They wanted to take the base of my tongue, my epiglottis, my voice box, my vocal cords, and both. I said, no, you can't do that. He says, what do you mean? I said, you can't do it. He says, well, if I don't do it, you're going to die of cancer. I said, that's my problem. It's not yours. I want a quality life. I'm not afraid of dying. I mean, talk about an inevitability. I'm not afraid of dying. I mean, why should I be afraid of it if it's inevitable? It's like getting older. Oh, I don't want to get old. Get used to it. You have no choice. I've got this new stuff now you put under your eyes, and it's supposed to make your skin look new. Oh, that was a waste of $31, But it was a nice idea. I get up every morning and I put the little, looking nice stuff, and then you can even make yourself believe, boy, you look good. Wow, look at that, all of it. Wow. Bring it to school and try it on Professor Insulaco. Hey, come here a minute. That's not his world. That's not his reality. Yet we stake our life on it. Absolute fundamental truths. What would life be like if we didn't have fundamental absolute truths? Something we could believe in. Well, some say chaos, others say they're really, and I agree with it. Some say, well, I'd be at peace with it. I mean, so what? If this is the only chance I have to live, I better make the most of it. Okay, I understand that thinking too. And what if the next life we're wrong about, and it is chaos? I mean, that's not what, those that